Welcome to the story of the Battle of Jericho. This story is from the book of Joshua, chapter 6, verses 1 through 20. The lesson focus for grades 1 and 2 is, When we obey, we'll be okay. The book of Joshua is about the relationship between God and God's people, the Israelites. At this point in Israel's story, Joshua has become God's general. The Israelites' task is to capture the promised land that God has led them to, beginning with the walled-in city of Jericho. At the beginning of chapter 6, God lays out the battle plan for taking the city of Jericho. It sounds ridiculous. Marching around the city for 6 days with 7 priests with 7 trumpets? But the absurdity is there to make the point that Israel cannot do it on their own. They need God. God is strong, and of course, God is with them. The Israelites obeyed God. They marched around the city the required number of times with all of the horns and priests and everything for 6 days. On the 7th day, they marched around 7 times. The priests blew the trumpets, and Joshua said, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." The people shouted, and the walls fell down. The Israelites charged into the city and captured it. An obvious theme in this story is obedience. The Israelites do exactly what God tells them to do in this story. They go round and round for God, and God brings down walls. It is this act of obedience, not the directions themselves, that leads them to realize how much they need God. They could not take Jericho on their own. They needed God. This was an important lesson for the Israelites at this particular point in their history. They had quickly forgotten their dependence on God when they were wandering in the wilderness with Moses. Again and again, they needed to learn to trust God. And for us, we can see that God plus us plus a big breath equals victory. Although this seems like a story of a loud, dramatic conquest, it is really a story of faith. When the Israelites shout at the walls of Jericho and they actually fall down, they learned again that God is with them and that they are absolutely dependent on God. This story helps us see that when we obey, we'll be okay. In today's story, your kids will hear God's surprising plan for the Battle of Jericho. Joshua and the people of Israel obeyed God and miraculously won the battle. This story helps illustrate the lesson focus. When we obey, we'll be okay. If a shy kid doesn't want to participate in a group activity, be creative. Invite him or her to assist you in distributing materials or keeping score in a game. In time, that peripheral participation will probably lead to full integration. In preparation for today's focus on obedience to God, you may need to define the word obey for your kids. Help them to see that obeying someone we trust is a privilege, a way of showing our respect and gratitude. The Trust and Obey leaflet activity draws parallels between the Bible story and the kids' lives. Ask about people your kids trust and obey. Let them know that God puts loving people in our lives to guide and care for us. As the kids draw their pictures, ask them to tell you about the trusted people they obey. Make the connection to the lesson focus by asking how obeying them makes things okay. 7 steps from the leaflet is a great way to review today's Bible story. Work on this activity as a whole class so that the kids can enjoy group shouts of victory and everyone can experience the feeling of accomplishment. As you finish the activity, thank the kids for obeying the classroom rules and remind them of Joshua and the Israelites' obedience to God. In this lesson, you can show kids that obedience to our loving God is a gift and a privilege. When we obey, we'll be okay.